Welcome to the Hardwood Hustle, powered by PGC Basketball. We believe in the value of a coach. We're here to educate, empower, and encourage you to lead like never before. This week, we discuss what's next when your season has just ended, including where to start your postseason evaluations and how to have the right conversations to move your program forward. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Hardwood Hustle. We got the full team here today, TJ, Lisa, and myself. And guys, I'm excited about us talking about this. We're going to talk about what's next. And that means what's next? What's after the season? Both of you guys just had your seasons end coaching college basketball. Lisa back in the game at Division I level, and TJ just finishing your season and a heck of a postseason run you guys went on. So what are y'all thinking about? This is really fresh. So this is a very in-the-moment conversation. And you're really going to give these in-the-moment, real-time feelings and thoughts you have going on. So let's start off with just kind of an intro to like what you're feeling right now, maybe in 10 to 20 seconds. Then we'll kind of go from there.
Feeling is, I just like, that's just raw feeling of, it doesn't always end the way you want it to. I think most of the time it doesn't end the way you want it to. And you spend the first 24 to 48 hours wondering how it could have been a little bit different and what you could have done better, how you could have helped the kids a little bit more get to where they, wanted to get to. And I think then you get on and watch all the other teams in their tournament championships and going to the postseason and the bracketology, and you just get to be a little bit of a fan when you don't want to be in those situations. And I think it's a really weird sense. And I guess my next feeling of where I'm getting to is just, okay, how do I get better? How do we get better? How do we set ourselves up better for next season? And so I'm kind of getting to that next place of going through my mind of what's next. And but it doesn't feel good, Sam. It doesn't feel good to start.
Yeah, I agree with Lisa. I think coaching is such an interesting profession, right? I mean, I feel like there's such a myriad of just emotions and feelings that you go through. I think one of the ones that gets lost a little bit, Sam, is just the like home life. No matter what your home life is, like you've been fully invested, like physically, mentally, in like this 8-9 month journey. Like you've just been going as hard as you can. I think for high school coaches, they worked all summer to get to the fall. They worked really hard to get to the regular season, and then you get the postseason. And like Lisa said, what percentage? Like 98% of teams lose their last game, so there's always this feeling like it's such a weird job, like a weird profession where almost everybody loses their last game. And so you have this part at home. I'll stay on that one for a second. That's just interesting. Like, my wife said to me yesterday, I'm going to give you about 48 hours to come back to earth, like, because you're just so invested. Like you're so just like, your heart's in it, your mind's in it. Let's say everything you got is into this team and this run and this journey. And then all of a sudden it's over, and that means so many things, like just not at home, like back with your team. You have seniors graduating, players moving on. And then from like, what's next with your team, like, gosh, I got to get back on the horse, because it really never ends with basketball, right? Like you just got to keep going, and what's next in that realm. And then, I think another realm for coaches that's really like any other job. Like, I don't know that many coaches at the end of the season that don't just reevaluate. I mean, if I'm just being really transparent, I've had emotions from like, oh gosh, how do we get back on the horse and rebuild this team? This is Emmanuel, this is a place I love. And then I think, gosh, is it time for me to look for another job? Like, and I thought, man, is there something outside of coaching that would be like good for me? Like, I just think every coach runs the gamut of, because you're so invested in this thing, of like, what do I personally do next? So I think there's the family aspect, like just reacclimating, because your whole schedule changes from what it has been. And then I think there's the whole aspect of what your team, like, what do I do with my team? And then I think you also do some, inner reflection, like what do I need to do better? What do I need to do next? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Like, I just think coaches go through unlike any other job where you just kind of move on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I just feel like it's just this emotional storm of just figuring out all aspects of your life. And it usually takes a little while to get back to like some sense of normalcy.
Well, can I add that? I don't know tell me if it's the same for you guys, but is there always a sense, like you said, so many of us end on a loss. Is there also the sense of like embarrassment at the end? Like, because what we do is so much in the public eye. It's so much in the eyes of our community. And when it doesn't end the way we want, like there has to be something in us. I know I feel it even of just like, like people know that we weren't good at the end, or like, I don't know. Just, can you speak to that? Like, let me know if this is a real thing or not.
Yeah, no, I think it's we live in like a results driven, right? And our own personal ego and our own, like, we live in that. And for sure, like there's a feeling for everybody. I think everybody processes that differently and handles that differently. But at the end of the day, when 99% of teams lose their last game, probably 99% of us as coaches feel like a failure, no matter what happened. Like, try and put it in perspective. Like, gosh, we were 7-7. We won 16 games in a row, won the conference championship, and then we lose a national tournament to, the defending runner-ups from the previous year. Like, that's all in all, I can step back from and say it was a really good season. But there's also a part of you like, gosh, we didn't play our best in that last game, came down to this moment. I think it's a real feeling because we're out there in front of people, and what you do is judged. What you do is criticized or praised or whatever it might be. And so I do think there's a real feeling because, again, basketball is unique and sports are unique in that sense where you are just out in front of the public eye. And there are a lot of people playing armchair quarterback and, coaches from the stands and all that kind of stuff.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the end of the year basketball. From a basketball standpoint, TJ, you bring up a lot of good points regarding, when you're coaching in a season, you're fully immersed in that season. And you are, like, a lot of your home life or family or all that gets put to the side or the back burner, whether, and even when you want to have balance, the reality is you don't have great balance because you're coaching 2 or 3 games a week. You're running practices, you're having, recruiting for college coaches, all that's going on. There's a lot of different ways to approach closing out a season. And Lisa, you as an assistant have a little less control of how this comes to life. TJ, as a head coach, you have a lot of control in how things happen. Meaning, do you all where do you land on this? Okay, let's have exit meetings with players and staff while it's fresh, 48 hours. Let's get exit meetings going. Let's close out the season. Or are you okay letting that, give it some time? Let's do that later on down the road. I think a lot of professional franchise like NBA coaches, they'll have exit meetings the next day after the season's over where it's really fresh. Where do y'all both land on stuff like that to turning the page, or not even turn the page, but like finishing the book, reading the last page of the current book you're on? Where do y'all land with that?
I would say you can give them some time in college basketball. In high school basketball, I don't know. I feel like I'm not as familiar with that schedule and what that feels like, but it seems like you could give them a week, get back to the routine, figure out time slots, and don't rush anything. Because I think obviously in high school, you got other stuff going on. They got classes, you got other jobs. And so in college, it is our job. And our kids are usually right on campus and they, have control of their schedule. So we can figure that out. So within a week or two, definitely. Wouldn't go more than that. I think giving them a few days is the best way to go to process it and reflect and kind of put things in the proper perspective so you can at least be more objective than potentially emotional that you had. But it kind of depends on your skill level, I think, as a coach and a leader in those situations. Can you take the emotions out of it to do them that early?
Yeah, I think it's both. And I mean, I don't think it's a right way to do it. I think sometimes the benefit of doing it really quickly is that everybody kind of knows, like, let's just say you have a player that's disgruntled with playing time and whatever, like, maybe a really quick meeting because like, hey, you're unhappy. Like we need to get to the bottom of this. And sometimes if you give them 2 weeks, they forget the feeling. They go back to betting on themselves. Next year will be better, like all of that kind of stuff. And so they kind of let that go. And then they have a different mindset, but then you might end up in the same situation next year. So maybe those raw emotions are good. I think there's also some times when you just need to step back and take a deep breath and, evaluate everything. And so, I mean, I think, I don't know that there's a right way to handle it. I know that a lot of times when you're driven, like, look, I mean, we got home yesterday. I'm in the office this morning and I'm thinking about what's next, like that. So that part of it. And going back to what you said earlier about the family part, I would encourage coaches to, not use it as an excuse that you're in season. I see that happen a lot, like not to be a good father or mother or spouse or parent or whatever it might be, like you can't use that as an excuse because basketball is 8 or 9 months out of the year minimum, like you're going. And so you have to find some balance through that. But there is an ebb and flow where, okay, in the off season, maybe this is a great time to make up for some of that stuff, to spend more time together, to deepen relationships, those types of things go a long way, but I don't think we should always use it as an excuse. Well, I was in season, so now I can go back to being a good whatever kind of person. And I think we have to find balance in that. And hopefully we find balance with that with our team too, like, loving them through the ups and the downs and, trying to get them through these times. And now it's time for some either good reflection conversations. And sometimes it's time for some really hard conversations. One of the things I think coaches can do, just like players stepping back from it, you take a week or two, you forget some of the things that you feel in those moments, right? Like about players. And it may be best to hash it out when you still have some of those feelings so that you don't set yourself up for the same situation the following year, because you want to avoid a lot of the pitfalls you had in the previous year.
Yeah, and I think everybody and all three of us on here, we're different humans, different personalities. We process things, we think about things differently. So everybody's different. I don't think there's one way to do it. At the end of a season, I don't know about you guys, but I'm always like, I feel like I need to clear my head. Like I've made a lot of decisions. It's been intense. It's been stressful. It's been fun too. It's been fulfilling. All those are true. And then sometimes you do need time to kind of like flying a plane. You're in the clouds, and sometimes you got to take that plane a little higher and get out from the clouds, and then you can see things more clearly. But how do you guys personally, so that you can be the best coach and leader, how do you personally kind of get through those moments of where it feels a little cloudy at the end of the season and you need clarity? Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I was just thinking about during this time when you're unclouding, and I think you got to take some notes of one. It's like kind of what TJ was saying. Like if you want to deal with something that you don't want to have to deal with again next year, like what are those things? What are the things that were you felt holding your team back or holding you back, or hurting certain players or certain staff members, whatever those are? Like write them down and make sure like that you remember how important they felt. Because I do think, just going back, to give yourself some time to process it and put perspective on it. I think what coaches miss on is 2 weeks later, it doesn't feel as bad. And so they don't really want to dig into that. And I think you have to look at that sheet or look at your notes and say, okay, this thing really bothered me. I need to talk about it. Like if we just avoid it and say, no, it's good. We talk ourselves out of it. We get optimistic. We get excited for the next season. We're like, oh, it's going to be better. This kid's going to come around. They're going to mature, or, this is going to be different. Well, it's only going to be different if you address it and you dig into it and you figure out, and like not overly make it a bigger problem than it is, but really make sure that you've handled it and have a game plan for helping, whoever it is, yourself or somebody else, be better the next year, or handle something better next year, or be more organized next year, or communicate better next year. Whatever those things are, I think what we end up doing is we reflect, then we feel better, and then we avoid. And so we really got to hone in on those things if we want to, the uncomfortable things.
Yeah, and this may be a bad analogy, but And it's been a long time since I've had a breakup, but I'm thinking about back in the days in relationships when you have a breakup. And I mean, people all have different emotions. Like some people are like, gosh, that was so emotionally draining. Like, I do not want to get back into that. Some people are like, yeah, let me jump right back into another relationship. Like I know personalities are really different, but it is really tough to make good decisions when you're just emotionally drained. And I think most coaches after the season are emotionally drained because, you don't even know it. Like I physically feel myself for about a week after the season, just changing, like even if it's like going back to exercising more, getting a little bit more sleep, eating a little bit better, like just the whole mental thing. I mean, yesterday, I literally, well, after I went my day back to go work with a travel basketball team for Sam Allen, which was the last place I wanted to be yesterday, was in the gym, but I was thankful to be there. But when I got home at 5:00, I literally for about 6 hours just watched the most mindless TV you could possibly watch. I mean, it was just dumb, stupid stuff. And I just sat on the couch and even just didn't want to get up to get something to eat. That's how like exhausted like I was mentally. So I do think that, balancing those two things, like getting your feelings, your emotions right. Like I said a minute ago, I mean, that next 48 hours to week, like I'm thinking like, is the local police station offering? I think I need a different profession. Like it's the local, like, I mean, I go through those emotions. Like that's how emotionally out of whack you are trying to figure out, because you invested so much. And hopefully it does feel that way because you have invested that much. But I do think you need to be patient to cipher through all of those feelings, just to make sure that you get back to a good place and you make the right decision, not a rushed, hurried, in the moment decision, whether it's with you, your team, your future, whatever those decisions might be.
And I think that brought to mind, TJ, what you shared. I mean, there's so much realness in it because you think about some high profile college coaches who have had mental or emotional breakdowns in the public eye after going on a run of winning a national championship or multiple, where your season's longer. I mean, your season just ended, TJ, in the first round NCAA tournament. And y'all had a good chance had you won that game to push out, and your season would have been going another month, and then that's a longer season, and then you have a shorter off season. So teams and coaches that go on longer runs, it is even more draining. I think about Urban Meyer talking openly about after when he was at Florida, they won a national championship, and he's in the tunnel. His team is out there celebrating. He's sitting in a golf cart eating pizza, and he's texting recruits next year. He's not even enjoying the moment because he's already turned the page to next season. He was that self-driven, and how out of whack. Like, you get so caught up. You're chasing something. You want to win. You're ambitious. And I think all coaches, not all coaches, a lot of coaches, we go all in, and it is emotionally taxing, and we don't enjoy the season. That's why I think like banquets are really good. I think that they close out a season and they help give finality to it. But also, what else is next in this conversation? What else do coaches, or what not even coaches, think about what y'all think about, as you process through last season versus the tension of next season? What are you thinking about there?
One thing I want to add to that, Sam, is like, I think sometimes we reference high profile people because they're out there in the public, but you know, I think there's middle school coaches and high school coaches that fully invested in them in their team, invested in their process, that were hurt by players, that were hurt by fellow coaches, that were hurt by parents, administrators. Like there's a lot of actually pain that goes into coaching. Like when you look back and you reflect on the season, there's a lot of people that hurt you along the way. On top of that, it doesn't matter whether you're coaching, eighth grade, whatever middle school team, or you're coaching the Florida Gators in a national football championship. Nobody puts more pressure on you than you. Like everybody has a lot of pressure on them. Like everybody wants to do well. And so we see it like at the high profile and we say that, but I think we also underestimate how really invested everybody is in what they do. Through PGC coaching, we've talked to some high school and middle school coaches that they're investing as much as we are. They're maybe they don't have the recruiting and that other kind of stuff, but they're thinking about their team day and night. They're trying to grow young people. They're trying and all of that comes with that pressure you put on yourself, the pressure you feel from the outside, the hurt you feel throughout a season. It is really like going through a relationship. Now, we hope the relationship was good, but we also know any relationship has a lot of battles. I mean, those of us that are, I've been married 18 years and, I love my marriage. I love my wife, my life. I'm thankful for all that, but it's hard. Like marriage is really hard. And I think coaching is the same way. You go through a year relationship of something that's really hard with pain and hopefully joy and all these different things. And so I just think that I think everybody gets those feelings, no matter what level you coach. I think everybody feels that to some degree.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you for clarifying or speaking into that. And I'm not by any means minimizing whether you coach, the Atlanta Hawks or Division One I just coached a middle school season and I coached for college in a decade. And this last season was as taxing as any seasons I've coached. And, I'm fully invested. So, yeah, good point, TJ. Appreciate you saying that. Lisa, what about you? What else are you thinking about?
Well, I'll tell you what you can't think about. And, you can't think about it. But I guess it's fresh in my mind because you're talking about middle school coaches, and my sister, who's never really played basketball except for maybe middle school basketball, had to coach her daughter's fourth grade team because she had to take her out of pretty much a bad, toxic environment. And so, of course, at the end of the season, all she can think about is the one parent who complained about playing time for a kid that didn't show up regularly to practice. And I'm coaching her up and trying to help her and be like, you can't think about the one unhappy kid because the 8, 10, 12 kids she had on her team were all so happy, so thankful, so appreciative. But that one always hangs with us a little bit longer. And so I think at the end of the season, we've done it in our postseason evaluation with PGC coaching is finding the things to celebrate. And I think that's what you said, Sam, the banquet really puts things into perspective and what went well and what did you adjust and do differently that was a great for your team and great for your staff and the people that you've gotten to know. Like what are the things you need to celebrate? And then I think the second part is controlling what you can control. What can you do better and how are you going to get better? And taking the time to intentionally do that as best you can, whatever fits you and where you're at right now.
Yeah, and I also think that one of the things we haven't talked about is, I love that whole success leaves footprints, like what are the things that I think this is important for every coach to do? What are the things that went really great in your season that you don't want to lose sight of? And this could be things from like a team bonding thing you did to what are the best offensive drills we did? What are the best defensive drills we did this year? What were the best things we did to keep people healthy and energized? What are the best things we did? I think taking note of all the things that you felt were a part of what went well, whether it was the season you wanted or not, when you were playing well, what were you doing? When you weren't playing well, what were you not doing? I really do think, and one of the things that we have our staff do, which we'll do this week, is go through and write down all the best things that happened this year, like all your favorite drills, all your favorite moments, your favorite practices, your favorite, because those moments, those minutes, those drills, those whatever, those are things we don't want to lose sight of, which are also easy to forget at the end of the season because you're evaluating everything that's negative. But what are the really good things that happen? So I like them to do it individually, write down and take notes and say, man, if all of my assistant coaches had this on their list, that is a for sure thing we got to do. If 2 or 3 of them had it, this is probably a really good thing to do. And sometimes only one person has it, but it's like, oh, that was a great thought. I forgot about that. So I think tracking the things that went well is also important.
Yeah, one of the more powerful things when I first got into coaching, and TJ, I think you'll know this because you're a Wooden fan, but John Wooden with what he would do in his program at UCLA is with seniors, he would have exit meetings with his seniors, and he felt like his seniors would be more honest than at any other point, right? Because they no longer play for him. He no longer controls playing time. And at that moment, the seniors will be incredibly honest and give him good feedback for what went well, what could be better. But I take it a step further. I don't think you have to wait till they're seniors. I think the exit interviews with your players can be so revealing, and you can learn so much about you as a coach and your program and where it's at. And so the power of the questions we ask ourselves, the questions we ask our staff, the questions we ask our players, I think are really important. And we have, those of our PGC coaching members, I'm going through this right now because I'm doing kind of a look through on all of our material. So we have I don't know if y'all realize, we have a 42-page postseason evaluation PDF packet, which is a lot. That sounds like a lot. One of the things I like in there, and Lisa, you helped create a lot of those, so you'll know it, is, hey, what do you need to keep doing? What went so well this year that, gosh, we got to keep doing it? What do we need to stop doing? Okay, this just not working. We don't need to do this anymore. And then what do we need to add to what we don't do currently? I think those are three things, just giving coaches tangible things they can take away from this show, is like, what do we keep doing? What do we stop doing? What do we need to add? I think those are pretty powerful ways to look at it in a simple way.
One thing that I was thinking about as we were talking about questions and what to ask, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts too, is just that if you have the right question but you don't have the right relationship or a safe environment, or your kids don't really feel comfortable telling you the truth or how they really feel, if that's not set up beforehand and kids are just trying to tell you what you want to hear, I think it's just not going to go as far. It's not going to help you. Like there's going to be back or side conversations still going on. But I think what we really want as humans, we want to be able to relate. We want to be able to tell the truth, even if it's wrong. Like, hey, I'm feeling bad about my playing time and it feels terrible. I don't want to take away from the team, but I can't tell you that I feel bad about my playing time because you as a coach, maybe you're talking at your players than with your players. Or you're very defensive on a lot of things really quick to justify, and you don't have that listening ear. And so maybe a lot of coaches get this right, but I do feel like if you want to hear the truth, like, do your players really feel comfortable telling you that, and of course you're an authority figure over somebody. And so that can be really challenging for a lot of young people.
Well, I think, Lisa, that's a good point. I don't know what y'all think, but I think there's two ways to help remedy that. Prescription for that is, one is like anonymous surveys you do where you don't put your name on it, have kids fill that out anonymously. Two, as a head coach, your assistant coaches matter, and they're the buffer between the head coach. TJ wants to be welcoming. He wants his players to talk to him. I guarantee, TJ, you can tell me whether you agree with this statement or not. There's a lot of players on your team who are intimidated by you and approaching you and being honest with you. So hopefully they have a relationship with your assistant coaches, which I think they do, and you've surrounded yourself with people who are very relationally based, because then they're the buffer. But then when they tell the assistant coach, and the assistant coach then can share with the head coach, to your point, Lisa, the head coach can't get overly defensive, because then and that happens a lot. And then the head coach may come back really strong. Well, you just squashed any future honesty because of the reaction that you had. So I think those are just kind of two quick remedies I think people or coaches should be aware of.
Yeah, and I think it's important to get the holistic view of the program as best you can. I think that's your thoughts, your assistant's thoughts, anybody that might have insight to your program, your players. I feel is not always real, right? And we can feel certain things that aren't really there, that aren't really happening, whether they're good or whether they're bad. We can feel those things. And that's where I think it really pays in the coaching profession to just be honest with yourself, honest with your staff, honest with your players. Like, unless you have some level of self-awareness and some humility about you to hear all of those things. Like, you're not going to get a real picture. And the problem with not getting a real picture is you're not going to solve real problems. And so that's the goal. At the end of the day, you're trying to solve problems. You're trying to get better. You're trying to build a better program. And without being humble and without being somewhat self-aware, it's going to be really hard to solve those problems.
So, Lisa, TJ, what are some kind of parting thoughts on this conversation? There's a lot more to discuss, obviously, but in a lot of ways, it is pretty simple as you turn the page. You have to have some finality to the season. You have to clear your own head and mind as a leader, and then you have to start preparing for the next season, which we'll get into in another show. What are some final thoughts you guys have for leaders and coaches out there listening?
Well,
Lisa.
Yeah, I'll go first. DJ can follow it up and give some better advice, but I've just really stuck with, we talked about it a few weeks ago, and coaching is problem solving. And how do we get our team to play a certain way, or play better defense, or guard certain actions, or get better shots? Like, we're constantly trying to solve problems. And I think here at the end of the season, it's what TJ said, like, are you willing to really look in the mirror of your program and solve real problems? And problems seem like such a negative, but like, that's the challenge that we've signed up for. That's actually, it's really exciting and fun. Like, you're taking a team on a journey. You're, making an impact on these young people. And so it's such a great opportunity to just get into it, and to do that with people that you love and appreciate, and do it together, and be on a mission and a journey, and all those good things that coaching is. And so it just makes me feel like, if coaches can really look in the mirror in the off season, grow in their self-awareness of the program and everybody around them, like, we can really do something special in the following seasons. And of course, sometimes those things feel negative, but sometimes they're just really great enhancements to practicing in a new way, or having better conversations with your players, and all those things. And so it just, whatever aspect of your program it is, it could be systems and strategies or culture, but we can really make a big difference if we're willing to do the hard work on that, in that aspect.
Yeah, Lisa, you bring up something that just triggered an important thought, which is there's a lot of coaches that there's a harsh reality, I think, that they're facing. And when I say they, maybe I say that we're facing. I'll include myself. And the reality is, the biggest change that needs to happen in this offseason is from within. And it's not your program. It has nothing to do with your players, but it's really taking a hard look at ourselves and finding the blind spots, finding where we're falling short and addressing those, instead of looking outside externally, at other things, or our players or our assistants. And there's some hard work that we as leaders and coaches have to do in the off season to really change the trajectory of next season. And we have people listening right now that are probably very growth minded, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't serious about growing yourself. And so, commend you on just taking that step. If you've listened, made it through this far of the episode, and you listen, like, you're probably a growth minded and you're seeking it out. And so, snaps to you, and keep doing that. TJ, what are your final thoughts on what could help coaches and leaders right now?
I think one of the things I would say as a final thought is, like, just reconnect with your why. Like, I think some healthy things to do are to take a few days, go do what you love doing. I'm looking forward to playing a little pickleball, maybe taking a weekend, going fishing, or some just things that relax you. I think that's important to do. I think reconnecting with your why, like why you do what you do, like that can get so muddied and so lost in the heat of the battle, in the moment of the journey of a season, like just get reconnected with that. And then I think just reevaluate, like this is a long game of, if you want to be a great coach, impacts a lot of people, that has successful seasons, like it is all about growth, like you were alluding to a second ago. And so How do I just continue to grow, and how do I get better, and how do I get those around me better? And I think all of those things are just really important. And it's a good time. It's a really good time to step back from everything, be a fan of the game, watch the tournament, enjoy watching games, learn from the games, like all of those types of things I think are really good to do this time of year. And it's one of those ones that, hey, the goal is to be better than you've ever been, come back better than you've ever been. And it's hard to do if you don't do some of the things I just recommended there. If you just stay in the grind, and it's hard to get back to that place, because they need the best version of you, your coaches, your assistants, your fellow coaches, your players. Everybody needs the best version of you. And there's a good chance right now at the end of the season, you're not the best version of you, and you need to rejuice. And so I just recommend everybody go do that.
Well, TJ, Lisa, y'all shared some great wisdom and insight, and appreciate your knowledge on all this. And I just want to say thank you to all the people that listen to us every week, whether you, TJ and I think Lisa, we all get texts at different times. Hey, really love that episode, or they tweet at us or drop it on some social media platform. All those little things, I know for me, are very encouraging and rewarding and fulfilling. So thank you for those that do that. Thank you for those that don't, but just listen every week. We do appreciate you, and we commend you, and we celebrate you for just your own growth. And we thank you for taking time on your car ride or your workout or your early morning office or late night drive home, taking time out of your day to listen to us in this recording. Please let us know how we can better serve you. We get some of our best topics from you, the listeners, so please hit us up with that and continue to encourage us. We appreciate it. So that is TJ, that is Lisa, I am Sam, and we are the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.